The arbitration decision confirmed French ownership of Clipperton, even though they had never occupied it. Now that they had won possession, the island was totally abandoned. There were no children, no soldiers, and nobody bothered to light the lamp on top of the rock. But in the 1940s, all that changed. When the Second World War broke out, France and England were too busy with the battle for survival to worry about a trivial atoll called Clipperton. But when the United States entered the war, the president in Washington had a very personal interest in the island. He had been there twice fishing, and had been very successful judging by these photos. Roosevelt believed that Clipperton would make an excellent air base, both for the war effort in the Pacific and for civilian aviation when hostilities ceased. The British had the same idea and the same objectives. To make sure of Mexican cooperation, Roosevelt discussed it personally with President Avila Camacho when they met in Monterey in 1943. He said that he thought Clipperton should belong to Mexico. But while the war was on, he asked Camacho to stop anyone from going to the island. Five months later, Roosevelt sent Admiral Byrd, of South Pole fame, on a secret mission to survey Clipperton. Admiral Byrd took charge of operations personally and inspected every part of the island, from the lagoon to the lighthouse. The survey's brief was to plan an airbase with 3 runways and seaplane capabilities. Byrd's report envisaged blasting a passageway through the rim of the atoll and dredging the lagoon so that it could accommodate supply ships and tankers. It wasn't going to be easy, but Byrd was sure the job could be done in 3 years. The price tag was $22 million in 1943 money. Admiral Byrd submitted his report to the Navy chiefs in Washington, but no action was taken in pursuit of Roosevelt's grand vision for Clipperton. But the British were still interested in the atoll, and the following year, Winston Churchill agreed to a British reconnaissance mission led by a daring Australian aviator named Patrick Gordon Taylor. Preparations were made at Coyuca Lake near Acapulco, and after many delays, the PBY flying boat took off, heading southwest on the old galleon route. Six hours later, they landed safely in the lagoon at Clipperton. Taylor and his men were faced with many physical and technical problems, and before they could leave, they were caught in a full-scale hurricane. As howling winds and rain threatened to destroy their fragile aircraft, a flight engineer rode out into the lagoon and boarded the PBY. Turning on the twin engines, he faced the plane into the wind for more than 7 hours and managed to ride out the storm. When President Roosevelt heard of the British presence at Clipperton, he was furious and ordered an immediate aerial inspection of the island. These are the pictures taken from an American reconnaissance plane sent up from the battleship Nevada. The observers noted a raft in the lagoon and some soccer goal posts. Without consulting the French, Roosevelt ordered the American Navy to occupy Clipperton, which was codenamed Island X. Charles de Gaulle was offended by the actions of his American and British allies, but there was little he could do about it. In February of 1945, Stalin met with Churchill and Roosevelt at Yalta to decide the future of the world. It seems that to avoid any further difficulties with General de Gaulle, Churchill and Roosevelt agreed to defer any further discussions about Clipperton until after the war. Unfortunately, President Roosevelt died 2 months later, and in July, the United States Navy evacuated Clipperton, leaving tons of surplus equipment and ammunition behind them. Isla de la Pasión was never meant to be a home for man. But if you listen on a quiet evening, you can still hear the distant voices of the men, women, and children who lived and died here. And in the city of Orizaba, they still remember and honor their sacrifice of so long ago.